Hello everyone, Milton here. To those of you who haven't been to my channel before, again, my name is Milton. I'm in my mid-40s, but up until very recently I was pretty sheltered from things because I grew up in what you might call a religious community in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan called the Sibling Brotherhood. We were led by a guy named Brother Brad who eventually got in some legal trouble. The Sibling Brotherhood was broken up, and here I am living with my third cousin Daniel just outside the Detroit area. Anyway, in my last video, I had talked about doing a reaction to professional wrestling, WWE, but I'm having some technical difficulties with that. So in the meantime, I thought I'd just share a story from where things have been with me recently, which is a long way of saying I had my first date. And yes, by that I mean my first date ever. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not completely inexperienced when it comes to women, but being within the Sibling Brotherhood, let's just say options were limited. I wasn't the favorite person in the group, and I wouldn't call things dates because, you didn't go anywhere. You just lived in the property there. So, I mean, you maybe meet up, you do a little something. It was not like a real date. So, I've been, a few years here, sort of out in the real world. And I'm working night shift at a local grocery store. And there's this girl I work with. His name's Kathy. She has an older cousin, Jody, who gives her a ride to work sometimes, ride home, stuff like that. I've seen Jody a few times, just kind of chatted a bit. I don't know where it came from. I was just talking to her and everything, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I was like, "Hey, would you like to go out sometime? Like Saturday night, I can take you out." And she said, "Sure." I mean, she said it so fast, like I didn't even have time to be freaked out by what I had just asked. She just said yes right away, and it was like, wow, I did it without even thinking about it. I just asked a girl on a date. She said yes. So we set it up to go out that Saturday. She said there was a place she wanted me to take me to that would be a really cool place to go for a first date. And I was like, wow, awesome. When I spoke my next shift, I was speaking to Flem. Flem's this guy I work with. We've been kind of friends, though he does make me a little nervous. But anyway, so I was talking to Flem about it, and I told him that that I had a date lined up with Jody, and he was like, "Jody?" And I said, Jody who sometimes drops. He was like, "Oh, Jody." He kind of went, "Ew." Now, that made me nervous because let me tell you something. Flem's history with women, including the two he had children with, they're bonkers. The fact that Flem made that face and that noise got me a little nervous, but he was like, "Oh, you know what? It's probably no big deal. I don't really know her." But anyway, Saturday night rolls around. I go pick her up outside her apartment building. She was waiting for me, gets in the car, goes out. She's like, "I'd like to take you to my cousin Zeke's place." I'm like, what's his place? She's like, "It's a bar and a grill. Be just kind of a cool place to chill out, have a little something to eat, get to know each other, have some beers." And, I was good with that except for the beer part. I think beer is basically tastes like cold vomit. But anyway, I was like, okay, I'm rolling with it here. I don't know what else to do. So she starts telling me where to go. And the thing is that where she's saying to go keeps moving us further and further out of town and into a more rural area. Because where I live at here, it's sort of like you go this way, it's really urban, a lot of city and stuff like that. You go the other way, it's like country, farms, and I'm going out country roads here, and I'm not seeing anything except for a gas station every once in a while. Just lots of houses, and we're going 20, 25 minutes into the country. Finally, we round this one corner on a dirt road, and I see a house up ahead, and she's like, "That's Zeke's place." And I'm like, "It doesn't look like a bar and grill. That looks like a house." And she said, "Well, yeah, that's his Blind Pig." I found out, shortly afterwards, Blind Pig is basically an unlicensed or illegal bar. At this point, I'm just kind of rolling with it. I mean, I'm kind of like, wow, I'm on a date. Maybe, I should just go with what she says, and I don't want to question it. So we go to Zeke's, and we come up the property. He's got about 8 or 10 cars parked all over the lawn and stuff, and you can see some people coming and going out the back door, and it's like, okay. So we walk in, we go down the stairs and into the basement of this house. And it was not like a nice finished basement, sort of like a half finished basement. Like cement floor, cinder block walls, a bar on one end, and a guy serving at the bar who I assume correctly is Zeke. There were a bunch of card tables out, and like a smattering of people, like not a whole bunch of them and everything, basically all talking to each other just sort of quietly and stuff, like not loud. This doesn't seem like a happy place to eat or drink. In fact, there's this one older guy sitting in the one corner, had this like little slot machine thing, and he's just boom, boom, boom. And I was like, well, who's that guy? And Jody's like, well, that's old man Tyler. But don't go over there, he bites. So yeah, that was old man Tyler. And as for the rest of the people, I mean, they were all kind of looking at us as we walked through towards the bar. And I didn't know these guys. I can't say what's going on in their minds. But, you know, to read their facial expressions and body languages, I felt like any one of them might murder me for the slightest excuse. So we get up to the bar, and, you know, Zeke, it is Zeke, her cousin Zeke, big guy, like a big guy, right? He's serving back there. He's actually like, hey, how you doing? See, kind of like gives me this nice friendly vibe, right? Like I kind of feel good talking to Zeke. Kind of made me feel better. So I'm talking to Zeke for a little bit with Jody, and he asked if I want a beer. I said, do you have anything other than beer? He had some Coke, so I had a Coke. Jody had a beer. And Zeke had a shirt on that said, Macomb Corrections Jiu-Jitsu Team. And I was like, you know, like, what's that? And he's like, well, Macomb Corrections. He's like, it's a prison. And I was like, oh, ooh. And he was like, oh, no, it's a joke shirt. I'm like, oh, okay, it's not really. So yeah, he's like, we didn't have a jiu-jitsu team. So anyway, Zeke goes back to this, there's like sort of like a room off to the side where I can hear a grill going and stuff like that. I took a look back there. It's like literally one of those backyard grills. And there's this guy, Doug, back there flipping burgers and franks and stuff. That's what they serve for food. Started talking to Jody for a little while. You know, tell me about yourself. And she said, oh, my name's Jody. It's short for Jodlin, which, okay. She told me that, you know, earlier in her life, things were that great. And she's just kind of trying to calibrate to the world. That's not the word she used. And I was like, you know what? That's similar to me. And she said, oh, really? What happened to you? And I told her about it. She was like, oh, I heard about you. And I'm like, well, what was your situation? She said, well, her latest thing was she got in trouble for trying to shoplift beef jerky. And I said, beef jerky? And she said, well, it was like over $200 of beef jerky, which, I mean, it's a lot of beef jerky, but apparently because it was only $200 worth, she wasn't in that much trouble. But because of some other stuff, she still had to work through it. And as you can imagine, I'm not feeling awesome at this point. So she's having a couple hot dogs. I'm having a hamburger and a Coke and stuff. And I'm starting to feel like, ooh, it'd be great to wrap this up and go home. And she says, you know, oh, hey, can you wait here for a minute? And I'm like, well, sure. Come on. Sure, okay. And she goes back to where Doug is. She's apparently had to talk to him about something and talking to Zeke. And he was like, so, it's your first date with Jody. And I was like, yeah. It's my first date, period. And I told him the story and everything. He was like, I'm sorry. I was like, well, what do you mean you're sorry? He's like, well, you know she's gone, right? And I was like, well, what do you mean she's gone? He's like, she's gone with Doug. It's like, she usually goes out Saturday nights with Doug. I know, you know, a little while ago, she asked me if I could get a ride here, and I told her I couldn't give her a ride because I had to work. And so I think she kind of just used you to get a ride out here, and that screwed up. And I'm sorry, but, you know, that's Jodlin. So Zeke told me the food, pop, everything, it's on the house, no big deal. And I left, and everyone was still staring at me, and I just kind of went through and just didn't give them any mind. And old man Zeke, still working the slot machine in the corner, hadn't bid anybody, including me, so that's good. And I suppose I should have felt bad, but I didn't, because it was like, that's a milestone. Went on a date. It was a terrible date. And if the next date is that bad, I'd feel bad then. But now I can say I've been on a date. And next time around, I'll try to make it a better date, which, you know, isn't exactly a high bar to cross. I'll let you guys know how it goes next time. I don't know when that's going to be, but you know what? Like I said, I kind of went through a really bad date. I think my odds are pretty good next time around. So anyway, if you want to hear more from me, most of my videos aren't stories like this. Usually I'm reacting to things, movies, music, stuff like that. Please like, share, and subscribe. One thing I did say with my last video, though, is that I had a big surprise. I had a big thing happening. I left Michigan for the first time in my entire life. And I didn't just leave Michigan for just anywhere. So I'll let this video show you where I went. So in the last video, I mentioned I might get to do something really exciting. for the first time, and which I did. I got to go somewhere for a couple of days. I tagged along on my cousin Daniel's business trip. I'm talking to you here because I'm going to go outside and show you where I am in a minute, but it's windy, so I might get that wind noise and everything, but you'll never guess where I've spent the last couple of days. That's right. I'm in New York City. How awesome is that? That's right. I've been to New York City, the Big Apple. My mind's still sort of spinning. I can't believe everything I got to see there. I was only there a few days. Biggest thing, went up the Empire State Building, which I can't believe, by the way, when you grow up in a place where nothing's larger than one story. And I've been around Detroit and stuff, but not up any of the buildings. So I literally felt like I was on top of the world. It was awesome. So, looking forward to more trips, and I'll share the details when I have them. But for now, stay tuned. I'll have more reactions coming up just as soon as I figure out the technology thing. And hope you enjoyed the story of my first day.